The National Institute of Economic and Social Research UK Gross Domestic Product estimate was among one of the key economic indicators released today. According to NIESR's latest estimates for the UK economy, output grew by 0.1% in the 3 months ending in May. As the economy remains stagnant, the negative output gap is likely to widen further, and the economic recovery not expected to begin taking hold till 2013. Joining me right now to discuss today's results is Senior Research Fellow at NIESR, Dawn Holland. Dawn, your estimates for the economy seem to broadly reflect those from the last few months, expecting the UK economy to remain broadly flat over the next 6 months as downside risks persist. What do you put down to being the key reasons behind this persistent weakness in the UK economy?
Well, it's true. The economy has basically been flat for the last 2 years. It's not just the next 6 months, but we haven't seen any growth for about 2 years. The global environment is not very conducive to growth. We've got very weak growth in our neighbours in the euro area. And we've also got a tight fiscal policy, which is not helping to stimulate growth. A bit of short-term fiscal stimulus would help to get us on the right track.
What sectors in particular do you see continuing to drag on overall growth?
Well, the most recent figures show that manufacturing has been particularly weak in the most recent data, whereas the services sectors are the only ones that have shown any sign of growth over the last few months. So manufacturing in particular is going to continue to drag on the economy.
What about the British government's focus on austerity and its deficit reduction plan? What are your views on the government's current fiscal and economic policy for the UK?
Well, the view of the National Institute it remains that fiscal policy has been too tight over the last year and remains too tight. We could afford to do some short-term fiscal stimulus, a tax rebate, bringing forward some government investment plans, in order to stimulate the economy in the short term when it's in its particularly weakest state, without causing any long-term damage to the credibility of fiscal solvency.
At NIESR, the term you're using to describe the UK economy is depression, when output is depressed below its pre-crisis levels. Is that right?
That's correct. So we've been in a depression now since January 2008, which was the peak of output, and we're still 4% below the level of output that we saw at the start of that year. This is the longest period of recession since at least the 1930s. That the UK has ever experienced, and we're not expecting it to come out of that depression until 2016.
In that case, do you think the Bank of England needs to extend its programme of quantitative easing or perhaps adjust interest rates?
Our preference would be to stimulate the economy through the fiscal side rather than the monetary side, because we already have a very, very loose monetary stance, whereas we have a tight fiscal stance, so some rebalancing there would be preferable. The oil price has also come down recently, so there's less pressure on prices, so it makes it more likely that we might see some monetary easing in the short term. But I would just stress again that our preference would be for a fiscal loosening rather than monetary.
Despite the significant fall in inflation over the past few months, household finances remain under pressure and the unemployment picture still does not look pretty. With the weakness in the broader economy, do you think this will have a significant bearing on consumer spending power in the coming months?
Absolutely, it will. I mean, there's a lot of short-term issues that might affect consumer spending. We've got the Olympics, and we've got the effects of the Jubilee from last weekend that will affect the figures that we see in the short term. But we have people losing their jobs and people whose job security has weakened, which is always a sign that we're going to see a higher rate of savings and people holding back what income they have in case of need later on. So I would expect to see very weak consumer spending over the next 6 months.
Dawn, thank you very much for giving a further insight on NIESR's outlook for the British economy. We've got plenty of news and updates to keep you informed on Dukascopy TV, so do stay tuned. But for the moment, goodbye.